Speaking of one more year, the jury is still out on whether or not Jimmy Garoppolo will have one more year with the San Francisco 49ers. A report emerged over the weekend from Mike Giardi of NFL Media that the 49ers are looking for a first-round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. Well, as many had said in reaction to that report, keep looking because you ain't going to find it. Asking for a first-round pick, though, could be the precursor to settling for a 2 or a 3 or whatever you can get. But you got to start somewhere. You got to make it known This is what we want. And, hey, if there is some sort of a fluke injury suffered by a quarterback during training camp like Teddy Bridgewater 5 years ago, maybe you do get a first-round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. But at least you put that price tag, you put the retail price on him for a while, and then you worry about discounting it later, Chris.
Yeah, right. I mean, yes, there's no doubt. I mean, first off, I agree with your first statement there. There's no way they're getting a first-round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. Unless it becomes some, maybe they could get a few teams bidding after him, but I still don't think that's not realistic. Maybe the scenario you're talking about where it's, okay, let's keep him through, training camp. And maybe a team does have a desperate Teddy Bridgewater-like situation. All right, then you get rid of him. But what if that doesn't happen? What if that doesn't happen? Now, I mean, you're going to go into the year with him there. And even though, it's like, hey, we kind of, we wanted to trade you. You're here with us and all that. I don't know. Or they just cut him and they get nothing for him. So I think, you're right with what your thought is it's an asking price. Here, it starts here. I just don't think it's not even realistic to think that the first-round pick is going to happen for Jimmy Garoppolo. Not when there's been 9,000, red flares shot up into the sky out of San Francisco to go, we want another quarterback. We want another quarterback. We want another quarterback. So everybody knows, that there's some sort of sense in San Francisco that they're trying to get rid of the Jimmy G, whether it's now, after the year, whatever that is. And I just don't think they're going to get the price that, of course, we're hearing about right now.
Yeah, first-round pick is going to be way too much, especially when you have to deal with his contract, $25 million in total compensation due this year. But, again, it's just a price tag. It's a price tag you hang on him, and maybe there's desperation somewhere, somehow, that triggers the kind of offer that is close to a first-round pick or could become a first-round pick. Well, Chris, this is the kind of trade that gets made maybe after the draft, and it's conditional first-rounder next year if he plays at least 14 games. If the team makes the playoffs, it goes from a 3 to a 1. And I know teams don't like to tie up that many potential draft picks because then if you have a 3 or a 2 or a 1 that it can eventually be, you can't do anything with those 3 picks later in the year. You got to wait and see what happens. But still, something like that would be fair if it's post-2021 draft, going into 2022, a conditional pick based upon how much he plays and how well the team does. But I still think desperation is what's going to trigger the market. A team that thinks maybe they're going to get a first-round quarterback that they like and they don't.
Right.
Or the Texans end up in a tailspin and they don't know what to do, and Deshaun Watson's gone, and they're not thrilled with the idea of Tyrod Taylor being the starter, so they go get someone that Nick Caserio knows. Who knows? There's all sorts of ways that desperation can emerge, but I think that's the best way for the 49ers to get any real value for Jimmy Garoppolo. Someone else has to be sufficiently desperate, like the Vikings were extremely desperate late August, early September of 2016 to give the Eagles a first-round pick and a fourth-round pick for Sam Bradford so the Eagles could go with Carson Wentz right out of the gates as a rookie.
And also to add to that, Minnesota was in the window of thinking, hey, we're kind of a Super Bowl team here, so we're really desperate. We don't have a quarterback. We need somebody that can get us there. I mean, I think that was all part of that. That was a special formula to make that happen. But I mean, again, I just can't think of too many scenarios that are like this to where a team did get a first round for this caliber of player who's not always available like you're talking about, where we know the team is looking, for other options at the position. All of those things, I mean, they've lowered the value of what that trade is. That's the big thing I think I come to. And then here, the other aspect I think that, the 49ers will at least have to think about here as far as like what you're talking about, keeping teams desperate or the market high or whatever. Because I'm with you. I think like ultimately it could be like a 3rd-round pick with like, hey, he played 14 out of the 16 games and now it becomes a 2nd-round pick. I think that's more like in line of what I would think it is. But I think you also got to keep track of the current market that's out there right now. What's going on? I mean, I would think at some point here over the next 3 to 4 weeks too, all right, Jimmy Garoppolo available for trade. I would think there's a good chance Sam Darnold's going to become available for trade. That's not going to help out the Jimmy Garoppolo trade market. Not at this point right now. I mean, that's one other seat that can be filled by, I think, a quarterback that teams are going to look at and go, he's a starter. He can play for us. We can go to the playoffs with that guy. So that element's in there too. That's where the 49ers, they're going to have to be smart with how they played this. You want to get teams and you want to get the ultimate, price tag for the trade, but at the same time, you don't want to be so stubborn that you leave yourself out in the, out in the cold, out in the dark with no business or nobody to talk to as far as getting the trade because, you drew such a line in the sand for such a high price that other teams went other places to get a quarterback.
Who's worth more? There are the numbers.
Yeah.
Darnold or Garoppolo. Who gets more in a trade?
I would that's a really good one. I would think Darnold would. I would, yeah. I just think with Darnold still like early in his career, I think there's been enough on film out there. You're going to watch it and you're going to go, man, there's a lot to like. I think a really good football person is going to realize, too, he's been in a tough situation. There's no doubt. I mean, for me, Sam Darnold is clearly the more talented football player than Jimmy Garoppolo. So I would think he could maybe, ask for a hair more in the trade market than Jimmy G could at this point.
Other side of that coin as well, and coin is the operative word here, Sam Darnold under a much lower salary this year than Garoppolo.
Yeah, right.
Garoppolo's at $25 million. Darnold's in the 4th year of a slotted rookie contract that doesn't pay out significant salary. But whoever has him under contract has until May 3rd to decide whether or not to pick up the option on 2022. And for the first time, that option, 5th year for a first-round quarterback, is not guaranteed for injury only. It's fully guaranteed, and it's going to be about $20 million for Sam Darnold. So you got to be ready to make that decision if he's under contract with your team.
Right.
I don't think the Jets, if they keep him, pick up the option. If you trade him, how do you not pick up the option? If you give up a 2nd-round pick, you're picking up the guy for 1 year, and you're going to roll the dice. Although we've seen that. We've seen that dice roll before. We saw it most recently with Mitch Trubisky in Chicago, where the Bears kept him for that final year. And, hey, if he has a great year, then we got to deal with it.
Right.
Well, he didn't, and he walks away, and they weren't on the hook for the potential 5th-year option, which was injury guaranteed. The stakes are raised now because the guy's getting the money one way or the other. So that becomes a factor in this as well. But, look, as this quarterback musical chairs has moved throughout the past month or so, there aren't many left.
No.
Barring a trade of a Russell Wilson or whatever it is that's going to happen with Deshaun Watson, we'll be talking about him later in the hour, there aren't many guys left.
It's
and it really
Carolina
is down to
and Denver, right? I mean, who else are we missing, right?
There aren't many seats and there aren't many guys.
Right. So it's Carolina and Denver. I think we look at as 2 teams that are probably still out there on the market. Minus like you're talking about Houston, Seattle. Those are weird situations. Don't know how to go. But just teams we know that are looking right now to go, we need to either bring somebody in to compete or be our starter or whatever else. I mean, that's the only 2 we're really looking at, right? I think that's it. I mean, what?
And you're right. No, but and we look at the board,
right?
If we assume it's Trevor Lawrence to Jacksonville, Zach Wilson to the Jets, someone else at quarterback to the 49ers, let's just say for the sake of argument, Mac Jones. You've been hearing Trey Lance possibly to the Falcons. That leaves Justin Fields for the Panthers or the Broncos. That means one of them is not going to get a guy in the top 10, and that team may pivot to Darnold or Garoppolo at that point.
Yeah.
But beyond that, there aren't many guys and there aren't many spots. And that's where this gets interesting. But for now, the 49ers don't have to rush. I think you let it play out. You get through the first round of the draft and see who's still looking around for a quarterback option better than the guy they currently have, and that may be the way that they could get something mustered now, or they can keep waiting. You're taking the risk, Chris. If you let Garoppolo go, you're assuming that the guy you draft at 3 is going to be ready to go week 1, and you don't have Garoppolo's insurance against that.
Yeah, I know. That's where it's interesting. That's where I don't know what to think with the 49ers, what they're doing. It's also the reason why I think it is Mac Jones, okay? Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it. Yeah, of course, I know my friend and all those type of things, but I just think it makes the most sense from that standpoint, too. A team that's kind of ready with a quarterback that's NFL pro ready right away instead of – okay, we get a Fields or a Lance who, as you've heard me say, I think need a little. I think there's a lot of people that think, they might need a year or they need some work or whatever that. So now you're going to keep Jimmy G, and then I think it's a great risk because it's like, okay, yeah, we kept Jimmy G, and here we are, we're 12-4 with Jimmy G. Our team was really good. He didn't have that great of a year, but we're 12-4, and he did good enough. And watch out. That to me puts you in a really tough spot as an organization. So we'll see. 49ers got some tough decisions to make, and they're going to have to figure this out.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.